But I feel like we've played Limbus Company. I feel like I can give a review, right? I feel like I can give a review on Limbus Company. We've played it since launch, roughly daily. I think I might have missed one day. Maybe not one day. I think I've played every single day, right? We played it. And I'm not a Project Moon fanboy. I'm not one that's gonna sit here with some weird bias towards the company. I'm gonna give it real. It's okay. So many things can be fixed and made a lot more logical. Like these standard fights where you don't get to control where who attacks what. It's all like speed based, and speed is like a random generated number, which RNG, random generated number, or rather random number generator, is a term that I'll use very often. Is just like half of the game is determined by that, and where in these general combat sequences, excluding abnormalities, where most things like attack and what attack you have and the speed and your coin flip is determined by RNG. It's not an overly enticing thing to hear on paper, right? So I feel like they could eliminate a few areas. Like, they could narrow a few areas to not have so much RNG. Like, you know, let you target. Like, that would be one that I would say is like, even in general combat situations, let you target which ability goes where. Which sounds a bit daunting, because, like, in the general fights, you can get up to, 15 different abilities to use if you have a full team of 5 and they all have 3 abilities. It's like, that is a very daunting thing, but it's still better than having your combat encounter be determined by RNG, which is just dog shit. So that's like the one problem. Other than that, it just have like, I want to say that the UI is not incredibly intuitive. You hover over an ability and you're just kind of chucked out a bunch of numbers. And there's like, if people have been on Twitter recently, there's been a massive push for like limiting and like kind of simplifying numbers in games. And I think Limbus Company is a great example of a bunch of numbers not really meaning much or being super obvious in their meaning. Let me get into this next combat encounter and I'll explain it. But essentially, you're given like, I don't know, 5 to 7 numbers when you hover over an ability. You just kind of have to... It's kind of guesswork as to what the fuck is happening. Let's go for... Oh, none of these do anything, really. None of these really do anything. Oh, none of these characters are good either. Let's go for Greg, I guess. Oh god, getting into the next combat sequence is going to take like 12 minutes. There we go. But yeah, you'll have like pluses. Where is it? Come on, game. Load up faster. Come on. Come on, buddy. You can do it. Also, another problem is the Steam port is terrible. Probably best to play this game on mobile if you have the patience for it. Because I don't have the patience for this loading screen. Yeah, let's go through these numbers here. You hover over an ability, and you have a coin, which is 6+, and then you have a 5 next to that, which is going to plus it to the 5, but then you have your 5 to 11, which is obviously going to equal to your 6 plus 5, but then you also have a shield with the number 19, as well as the sword with number 28. So, one is your coin value, one is your damage value, one's your defense value, but the ability doesn't actually defend, so it's like, okay, fair enough. And then you have your skill effects, which is obviously kind of self-explanatory, and then you have your weaknesses and your positives, which is kind of, well, fair enough. It gives it to the character, but I'm not really caring about the character because I'm using the ability. And then you have poise, which I guess it explains it instantly. But usually, is there an ability here that has like a bunch of effects? If you have, like it's happening right now, if an ability has like multiple effects, you'll just get like a scrolling thing, which is just a lot of clutter. And so they should have just done a way of just clicking on an ability and it can stay there so you can inspect it all manually instead of having it like auto scroll through. Just a UI thing. Also, these things are kind of like mostly irrelevant. It's just a bit of a clusterfuck of this UI, I think. And I think that problem could be alleviated by just simply treating normal fights like abnormality fights, where in abnormality fights you can click on the ability and then kind of go and inspect it, I'm pretty sure. If my memory is correct, I could be wrong on that one. I can't even remember now. So that's pretty much that. The UI could be infinitely better, in my opinion, during the combat sequence, and then just the actual game mode itself determines the actual UI. What else is there about the game? The mirror dungeons and also the stats stuff that I've just like realized is that there's a lot of things that just aren't functioning in the game from what I've noticed and from what I've been told in chat now. Paralysis doesn't work, tremor doesn't work. They just don't do their effect, which is kind of like a thing that should have been fixed within like 1 to 2 days of the game launching, but it's been like a week now. So that's a bit unfortunate. I feel like also a lot of ego gifts when you're doing mirror dungeons, a lot of the ego gifts just are dog shit. Just they don't really do anything. Like getting specifically pierce up, I guess that is a very nice thing to do, but opposed to just getting like burn application whenever you, because I think there's like one that's burn application whenever you use any ability or some crap. I feel like that's infinitely better than getting a very specific type damage up for a specific character after you activate a specific ability. So there's just a lot of like weird, like very specific ones, which is kind of like understandable in a certain degree if this was like an actual roguelike system, but it's very in between, which is a very odd way to put it, but I'm gonna go with it. What's another one? The specific stats not functioning is a very big annoyance right now. They've learned that paralysis actually didn't work, because I was very in between on like not knowing it, but after I was told in chat, it's kind of put a sour taste in the mouth knowing that just things don't work, which is how it should be. And another one actually that I've just found. I was thinking about the last boss of Chapter 3, which we've just now struggled on. The last boss of Chapter 3 is a boss that just does not really abide by any kind of rules. Rock, paper, scissors. Let's go with paper, eh? Voodoo doll. Yeah, this one's fucking dog shit. You just deal 3 damage to the enemies at the start of the turn. Fair enough. The last boss of Chapter 3 has this, and it's a lot. There's a fair few enemies that have this throughout the whole kind of game. Is that they just don't have weaknesses. You just will find enemies that don't have weaknesses. Now, this sounds like a weird point, but it kind of defeats the purpose of the game. The game is one about managing weaknesses, knowing what the enemy's weaknesses are, kind of playing around them, and like, you know, min-maxing your team. But when you encounter enemies that have no weaknesses, like these guys, what, he's just weak to smash, he has no sin weakness, that's a very high capation, if you will, right? So it's just a little thing that kind of just goes against the grain, or what the game is trying to do, is make you think in depth about your choices. Pre-match and also during the match, right? Pre-match thought process is constructing your team. Mid-match thought process is using the correct abilities to the correct weaknesses and so on and so forth. But when the enemies just don't have weaknesses, you're kind of removing the whole second part of the process of thinking. Which is, yeah, just kind of dumb. So they should probably give weaknesses to enemies that don't have weaknesses. And yeah, the game just has a lot of kind of minor problems that add up. RNG is one that we mentioned earlier. RNG is just everywhere. Like, people are in like a lot of comments saying, oh, "There's no RNG. It's not that RNG. You can play around it." Yeah, you can play around RNG, but when the result is still determined by a roll of a coin or a flip of a coin, still RNG, you know what I mean? Because I can have all of the... I can have such an advantage against the enemy, but if it still ends up in me, me losing all my coins and them winning all their coins, oh, RNG. RNG, boys! So it's still, the point of, oh no, you can play around it is kind of redundant in the sense. Kind of redundant. Let's go here. Did we finish Chapter 3? Nah, that's why we're doing like our review, because I'm probably not going to attempt Chapter 3 until the game is either fixed or until Chapter 3 is old content, because I can't be asked to do that whole process again. That's why we're doing like a pseudo review and probably upload this after. Just as like a little video, you know, a little video for the YouTubers, the YouTube Whizzlers, right? A bit of spice of light, or what is this, light spice in your life with this little bit of a review. Just have it out there, because so I could get hated on in comments and whatnot, you know what I mean? Oh, you're just terrible at the game. You're not using the weaknesses properly. You're not leveling up your correct units. You're dumb. That one's actually true, but yeah. You got a big forehead. That's the reason you're failing. Your forehead is far too large. You're from Australia. Have you ever flipped a coin in your life? Blah, 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 blah. So on and so forth. But yeah, Limbus Company, we're gonna continue playing it, right? We're gonna continue mulling around, but story progression is not gonna happen at all. We'll probably play on, like, whenever we do play it, it's probably gonna be mostly to just, like, an evening of just grinding mirror dungeons. I think this Thursday we're gonna play it because it's major patches happening, and we might do a bunch of stuff there. I say major patch, I don't think many games have major patches anymore. But it's having a patch of updates and whatnot where it's adding systems that should have been there on launch, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Am I right? Am I right? We got to play then and have a potentially good time. I'm not too sure.